Hi y'all, it's me Ben, back at it again, and I'm going to be showing you a little embroidery tutorial. If you have already picked up your little package from Slate, it should come with 3 colors, 1 needle, and 1 hoop that's already stretched with the pattern that we're going to be working with today. I hate embroidery, just to get that all out of the way. But give it a shot, give it a try. Maybe we will like it, maybe we won't, who knows. But anyway, I'm going to be starting with this blank one, just to illustrate how these sort of techniques are done. So we're going to be showing you a couple of little like stitches. So it's not just going in, out, but instead we'll be showing you a back stitch and a stem stitch, which are 2 different ways of making a line, essentially. So if you start with your floss and take out a good portion of it, you know, about a foot, maybe a little bit longer, anything longer than that, and it is going to start being kind of unmanageable. And then the next thing that you want to do is take your threads and split them. So normally there's six threads, and we're going to break it down to be a smaller amount, so we're going to go with 2 today. So you're going to just get 2 pieces that are different, and you're going to take them apart. And it might get a little strung up. So I tend to use my mouth as a third hand for getting this thing away. Perfect. Alright, so keep your other pieces, obviously, they're still useful. We might need to use them later. So thread your needle. Lick it a little bit. Get it through the hole. I know that that's always a struggle at the start. But the more that you do it, the better you're going to get at it. And some people like to double up their thread and then tie it together like this. We're not going to be doing that today. Instead, you want to leave just a little bit off of your needle so that we can pull it through and it's not going to get caught as easily. So the first stitch is a running stitch, which is pretty basic. So you're going to go up from wherever you're starting. You're going to go a certain length, which is up to you to decide. And then we're going to pull it through almost all the way so that there is still a little bit left. And then when we make our second stitch, which we're trying to make a straight line, so we're going to go up a little farther from it, and we're going to pull that almost tight. And then this is important. So in order to keep your thread locked in, we're making sort of a little, we're taking the loop from our second stitch and we're sticking our first bit of thread through that, and then we pull that tight, and that's going to keep that from pulling through. So now I can pull this and it's not going to all come out. So now our thread's locked, so it's good. So for the running stitch, you are just doing an in-out movement. And then you can kind of just keep going. You're thinking about, how do I keep these stitch lengths pretty much the same? It's something that you're just going to kind of have to eyeball. And then to finish it off, we're going to flip it over again. And I'm just going to run my needle back through one of my loops on the back side. And that's like what we did for the first one to lock it down. You can do it twice. And with this loop, you can kind of make a little knot. And that's going to secure your thread, so now it all isn't going to come apart once we take this out. Give it a little snip. And there we go. That's the running stitch. So the running stitch is characterized by these little dotted movements, kind of like you're taking steps or you're running. But if we want to make one that doesn't have these little gaps in between, we're going to start the same way. make your first stitch, pull it through, don't pull it through all the way, and then this is the back stitch, so we're actually going to go a bit farther up to the end of where the second stitch would be. We're going to go up through there, and at this point we can make our little knot here to keep that in place. And then you're going to go back and you're going to want to get this right where your first stitch ended. Sometimes you'll get a little knot like this. What you actually are going to want to do is just pull it gently from a couple of different directions. It's usually not knotted entirely, so if you just really gently pull at it, it'll undo itself. Yeah, so a back stitch is pretty similar, but it's going to not give us that little space in between. So then you just continue doing it the same way. You go up to where you want it to end, and then back and through at the same spot. And you just work that along. And then to finish it off, don't worry if your back looks a little messy. It's alright. It's okay. We'll make do. Just send it back through one of your old loops and make a little knot with it. There we go. Alright, so we've got 2 good stitches for doing outlines, which is what we're kind of focusing on for this project. So this next one is called a stem stitch, and like the name would suggest, it's usually done for doing stems of flowers or something like that. So we're going to go up, don't pull it all the way through like I just did. We're going to go in, and this time we're not pulling this loop all the way through, and instead we're going to go up about halfway through. So each time that you make your stitch, you're leaving this loop. If you can leave it on the same side, so I'm always going upwards with it, it's just going to make it look a little bit neater. You're going up through the middle, you're pulling that tight again. And this gives it like a little bit of a textured look to it. So yeah, it's going to be a little bit different. So it's another way of making one that isn't going to be having gaps in between it. And it's really up to you. If you want to make one that has gaps in it, that's fine. Alright, so if you, for instance, this one's tight now, so I can just pull that up a little bit with the needle to get it to where I need it to be again. Go through. And to finish that off, you just make the last stitch that you want. And then we're going to do the same thing where we flipped it over, and we're going to just secure it by going through some of our old thread. Awesome. Alright, so that's 3 really basic stitches that we've got for doing outlines, which is what we're dealing with for this thing right now. We're just outlining some letters. So you kind of take those techniques and you apply it to it. Work on a back stitch if you want, work on the chain stitch or the stem stitch if you want. But yeah, and I'll show you a couple more tricks that you're going to run into here. So I'm taking that thread that I had earlier, I'm dividing it again, because you always want your threads to be consistent, and that will give you a consistent line. So where to start on this? You each have 3 different colors, so if you want to use a different color for each word, or if you just want to use the same color, if you want to swap it up and do a different letter with a different color each time, that's all fine. But one of the challenging things here is there's a lot of little loopies that are going to be kind of hard to deal with just doing these sort of straight line stitches. So in order to tackle a loop, let's say that I'm starting here. I'm not making sure my thread is loose, it's not going to get caught on itself. I'm going to take another one down here, have another little twisty bit. Alright, so to make this one now, we're going to kind of start in the middle like we were doing with the stem stitch. I'm going to pull it tight, and then you just take it right back in the same spot but on the other side of the floss. So one will be on the inside of it and one will be on the outside. And great. Make it really small, and you can just kind of pull it taut and then move it around with your fingers, and it'll kind of work itself into a little bit of a loop. This one's a little bit angular, so you could almost even make, you know, 2 different little catches right there. And then I just continue on the same way for the rest of this. You know, I'm going to go with the back stitch, mix it up, use multiple techniques at the same time. And then, yeah, you want to keep your stitches fairly average as well as you can. Try and make them all mostly the same size. It's going to lead to a sense of unity. But for this, if it's practicing, if it's your first time doing embroidery, don't stress out too much about it. It's going to kind of be funny if we have something that says, I hate embroidery, that was done with embroidery, and looks a little bit janky. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. And yeah, you'll just kind of continue on like that and finish off the project by going at it. It can be a little meditative, throw in some music, or put on a TV show in the background because it can get a little mind-numbing after a bit, but there's lots of exciting things you can do with embroidery. And yeah, just to finish it off, remember, go back through a stitch you already have, make a little loop, pull it through, and you'll have a little knot. Yeah, so that's what I'm looking for, at least, to see if you can finish all of the lettering. And if you do and you think it looks a little bit boring, think about ways that you can add to it. So, little decorations around the side. We can have these sort of little starbursts going in a circle around it. You can underline a word in particular, just to emphasize exactly how you are feeling about this thing at this moment, but it's great. So where each one is going to be the same, where we're all looking at the same words, everyone's got a couple of different colors, and hopefully everyone's going to embellish it with their own little personal touches. Great. Happy embroidering.